Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. I am your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host from the Face Off, the best fantasy podcast there is for football, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
What's going on, Mike? How are you?
All right, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and officials are still screwing games up, but we're going to start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts, Anthony, and Jameis Winston. 33 for 45, 456 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So this is basically Jameis Winston's career in a nutshell. When he's good, he's as good as anybody, and when he's bad, he's as bad as anybody.
You know, I don't know if Jameis Winston has ever been this productive. You know, in terms of yards a game and touchdowns thrown. But then there's the bad side of Jameis Winston. I believe since week 6, he's had 23 turnovers. So, yeah, you're going to get the good Jameis Winston. And despite, you know, the interceptions yesterday, they still won the game. But if you're Bruce Arians, you got to make a decision here, because think about how many more games they would have won if it wasn't for his turnovers.
Well, and the decision is hard to make, because who do you replace him with? Because they're probably not going to draft high enough to take a shot on a rookie. I mean, they're probably going to be somewhere between, probably 8 and 15 when they pick, according to the last 3 games. A guy like Andy Dalton would look good in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, you know, Dalton, do you think the Bengals are going to move on from Dalton? Is that, you think that's a lock after what we've seen? Like, are they going to go after a rookie? Are they going to retain Dalton? Because they did go back to Dalton, and, you know, they've been a hell of a lot more competitive.
Yeah, they've been a lot more competitive, but they haven't won. And the thing is this.
They won once.
Well, yeah, but it was the Jets. But Andy Dalton is Andy Dalton. If I've got a chance to get Joe Burrow, I take Joe Burrow. If I can't get Joe Burrow, I'm going to roll with Andy Dalton. I just think that the Bengals are going to move on from him. I think they're catching a lot of heat, and Mike Brown will give in to that heat at some point. But I would think this. If you get the number 1 pick and you can play Andy Dalton at quarterback and you can get A.J. Green back on board with playing next year, you could pick a guy like Chase Young, and this team could do a dramatic turnaround within 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have the talent. They need some linemen. The defense is getting better. They obviously still need defensive pieces, but yeah, I think they have enough to turn this thing around. But the biggest glaring need, if you're not going after a quarterback, which I don't think is a dire need, you need to address that offensive line.
Yeah, and the linebacker position for the Bengals. But we look at the Indianapolis Colts. Jacoby Brissett, 19 for 36, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, but they have no running game again. Marlon Mack, 13 carries for 38 yards, was their leading rusher. And neither team in this game really had a running attack. And the Colts season is over, just like the Bucs season is over. And where does the blame fall with the Colts here? Does it just fall on the injuries being too much to overcome, or should Frank Reich be looked at all?
I think Jim Irsay deserves some of the blame, because this is a guy, at least to me, I believe he knew a lot more about Andrew Luck than about a week before he retired. I think Jim Irsay knew that that Andrew Luck was going to retire. Maybe they felt good with Jacoby Brissett, but I think it starts with Jim Irsay, and then, you know, you can't blame anybody for the injuries.
No, but you can blame him for not being deep enough to overcome the injuries, at least somewhat. Offensive line-wise, they were good.
To be fair, I mean, to their wide receiver position, T.Y. Hilton, their free agent signing, Devin Funchess went down, didn't see a snap. Their, top draft pick at receiver, Paris Campbell, played a handful of games. I mean, they were just decimated.
Yeah, and I don't think this falls on Reich. And even if you would have known 3 months before, it doesn't really change anything with the Andrew Luck situation. The only way it changes anything if you do something before the draft, maybe, or before free agency started.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Brissett has been bad. Brissett has been bad in the second half, and to me, um, Brissett has been bad since he suffered that MCL injury. I don't think he's been right since.
Yeah, but they didn't really have a choice, so they played him. Next up, the Buffalo Bills. Um, I think there's a questionable call at the end of the game that hurt them, but the Bills stood toe to toe with the Ravens. They lose 24-17. They limited Lamar Jackson. He threw 3 touchdown passes, 145 yards. He only ran for 40 yards on 11 attempts. And the big takeaway to me in this game is the fact that the Buffalo Bills are really a threat when it comes playoff time because they can play some defense and they can run the ball. Devin Singletary averaged over 5 yards per carry. Josh Allen, 17 for 39, 146, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, so he didn't kill him there. But he's going to have to be able to make a throw at the end of a game if they want to get this to where they can make a deep run.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the Buffalo Bills, and the fact that they played next to the 49ers in this stretch since getting Marcus Peters, because that's when the Ravens really separated themselves. Other than the 49ers, the Bills played the best game against the Ravens, which shows that they are a legitimate threat. As far as, Josh Allen making throws, it would be nice if there was, John Brown has been solid. Cole Beasley has really came on, but I don't know if they have that guy that Josh Allen can make that play too. I think it's going to have to be on Josh Allen to make something out of nothing down the stretch, if that's what you're looking for out of him. But this team is solid. They have a matchup in New England to where if they can go in New England and beat the New England Patriots, which I believe they can, then we can talk about the Buffalo Bills possibly as a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah,
but you got to go to New England and win that game. And right now, the Patriots are reeling.
Well, there's a big difference, though, between Ken and Will. And the New England Patriots reeling, we see almost every year. This has gone on a little longer than it has in the past. But we'll talk about the Patriots in a little bit. The Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, 24 for 30, 242 yards, 1 touchdown. Dalvin Cook, 18 carries, 62 yards. They didn't play great in this game, but they did what they should do, which is dominate an inferior opponent.
Yeah, I really thought that the Minnesota Vikings were going to come out and drop 40-something points on this Detroit Lions team. They didn't, but they did play a really sound football game, and that's really what you want at this time of year.
The thing about Minnesota to me is we've watched them in the past. They don't blow too many people out because the way they play is the way they play, which is a lot more physical style football than what they have in the past. So it may not have been a 40-7 game, but the 20-7 game was a dominant butt kicking, if you ask me, from what I saw of that game.
Yeah, I mean, it really should have been. They should have pitched a shutout if it wasn't for that last drive or two score by David Blau to Galladay, which really doesn't matter.
All right, next up, the Green Bay Packers ran their record to 10-3 with a 20-15 win over the Redskins. I told y'all to take the points. Dwayne Haskins was a little bit better, 16 for 27, 170, a touchdown and a pick. Adrian Peterson, 20 for 76. The thing that surprised me here was only 5 carries by Darius Geis. He averaged over 8 yards per carry.
I believe Geis left the game early with another knee injury. I'm not sure if he came back. I'm not sure how significant it was, but I know for a short period he did re-injure that knee.
Yeah, but what I'm saying here is this. If Darius Geis plays this whole game healthy, the Redskins might have won this game.
Oh, I agree, because you can run. That's the one flaw in this Packers defense that really makes because the secondary is young, but they're really talented. But if you can get a rushing game established against them, and then they're focusing on stopping the run, then you could pass all over this young secondary. So that's what you have to do to beat this Packers team. And the good teams are going to figure out to run the ball, and that's a wrap.
Yeah, and the Packers, Aaron Jones had a great game, averaging over 8 yards per carry, 16 carries, 134 yards. Aaron Rodgers, 18 throws, or 18 for 28 completion per 195 yards, 1 touchdown. So I've got to ask. I mean, I know the Packers are 10-3, but this does not look like a legitimate Super Bowl contender to me.
No, at least it doesn't look like a typical Green Bay Packers Super Bowl contender because Aaron Rodgers isn't consistently lighting up the scoreboard. But I think a lot has to do with the fact that everybody is aware that outside of Devontae Adams, they really don't have another reliable pass-catching target. I mean, Jimmy Graham has dropped more balls than he's caught this year. And all those young wide receivers aren't panning out. But where they do have a lot of talent and depth is at the running back position. And I think that's how they're going to have to win games, which in playoff football, you want to be able to run the ball.
Yeah, and we look at a team in the Houston Texans who got dominated by the Denver Broncos 38-24 yesterday. The score wasn't as close as, or the score was closer than the game was. Denver led this game 31-3 at one point. Deshaun Watson, 28 for 50, 292 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think the thing we've seen offensively here, when Will Fuller is not healthy and playing, this team is not nearly as good offensively as what they were.
No, and they have some pretty good receiver depth. If you talk about Kenny Stills and Kiki Cutie and DeAndre Carter, but they're not the talent that Will Fuller is. But the issue with Will Fuller is the injuries, and you take him off the field, they become really one-dimensional, and they don't have a sustainable running game. Carlos Hyde has his games where he looks good, but he's Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, he's not consistent. Drew Lock, on the other hand, for Denver, 22 for 27, 309, 3 touchdowns and a pick. They didn't really run the ball that well. They only averaged about 3 yards per carry. But the thing that stands out to me about Houston here is defensively, I mean, if they're not scheming a way to get to quarterbacks, they cannot do it with the guys they've got. They can't pressure the quarterback. Right now, I think this bodes very well for the Tennessee Titans winning this division.
Yeah, and I agree there. I was always skeptical about the Texans, and I know that there's the Deshaun Watson factor, but they have so many holes, and eventually this defense is going to give. I didn't think that Drew Lock was going to light him up the way they did, but eventually when you lose Watt and Clowney and you're playing with a secondary full of scrubs from other teams, like if the Raiders and the Buccaneers if you're taking their former starters off the street, you have a problem. And that's going to show, and right now the Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill, I mean, we both wanted Ryan Tannehill to be the week 1 starter, but I don't think either one of us saw this version of Ryan Tannehill.
I thought they could win the division if he started, but I didn't think he'd be this good. I thought it was just because the team was good and they were missing a quarterback, to tell you the truth.
I mean, they're going to be he's going to get a contract offer to be their starting quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, and he should. He deserves it. Game of the day yesterday, the 49ers, 48. The Saints, 46. Jimmy Garoppolo, 26 for 35, 349 yards, 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. I made a comment on last week's show that I thought Jimmy Garoppolo was better than Lamar Jackson, and I had a Twitter direct message from a guy by the name of Drew who told me I was an idiot. So, Drew, if you're listening, who's the idiot now? Anthony? Jimmy Garoppolo looked like the real deal.
He looks like the real deal, and what yesterday proved that it was that he can win different variations of games, whether it's going throw for Drew Brees or a hard fought game against the Baltimore Ravens, even though they didn't win that one. But I'm not ready to anoint Jimmy Garoppolo yet. I mean,
I didn't anoint him. I just said he's better than Lamar Jackson because it's not even questionable.
The 49ers winning that game yesterday, I was very surprised. I actually liked the Saints at home to win that game, but for the 49ers to do what they did on the road, and I think something that's really big that's getting overlooked is Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert is a lot of times is the number 3 running back on the team, and anytime this kid in the past 2 years gets an opportunity, he's one of the better running backs in the NFL. He's number 1 in the league in true yards per carry and yards per touch. And even though Breida and Coleman were both healthy, Raheem Mostert, I think they are starting to see that Mostert's probably the best all-around back they have on that team. And he should be the top running back on that depth chart moving forward. If Mostert's the guy, I think this 49ers can make a deep run.
Now, that's different to what you said a few days ago when you questioned him, though.
Who? I questioned Mostert.
You
I did
questioned
not
the
question
49ers.
Oh, I thought you meant Mostert.
No.
I still have questions about the 49ers.
How? What are the questions?
Because Jimmy Garoppolo is prone to turning the ball over.
No, he's not. He's just not. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo does not have a history of turning the ball over. Not in college, not in New England. He was coming back off an injury that he didn't play for almost an entire year. And you're putting him in an offense that he hasn't really been in. It took a while to get to it. But, I mean, the Saints have a really good defense. They were playing with Marshawn Lattimore, and he still torched them. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo showed how good he was yesterday. He showed how good he was in New England. He showed how good he was at the end of 2 seasons ago against Garoppolo is the reason I thought this team could go to the Super Bowl this year, and I think he showed it yesterday. He went toe-to-toe in the Superdome against a Drew Brees that threw 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he won the game.
I mean, Garoppolo does have 16 turnovers this year alone.
Yeah. What's he got in the last 3 games?
So I'm not, it's not like he's not a little turnover prone. In the past 3, looks like he has 2 in his past 3 games.
Okay. And that's not turnover prone. Because also, who are the teams?
Well, because he's not throwing 23, because he doesn't have 23 since week 6, like Jameis Winston. He's not turnover prone.
He's not turnover prone. I mean, this is the thing. He was turnover prone early in the season. He's fixed it. When you look at him and you look at what the 49ers have done, I mean, the 49ers in the last 3 weeks have dominated the Green Bay Packers. They lost a close game on a field goal at the end of the Ravens, where if the weather's nice, the 49ers beat the Ravens. And then they beat the Saints in New Orleans. I don't see how there could be any questions about this team. And if you go back to the loss to Seattle in overtime, I mean, San Francisco's missing 7 or 8 starters in that game. And they still almost win the game.
So are they your clear-cut top team in the league? Where do you have the 49ers?
There is no doubt the San Francisco 49ers are the best team in the NFL.
I will still give it to the Ravens.
Why? Because they won a
I like their defense more.
Their defense I like their
D-backs more. I like their defensive backs.
But defensive backs don't win. Defensive line wins, and their defensive line is much better than Baltimore's.
I agree, but Baltimore's D-backs improve their defensive line.
No, because this is the thing, though.
Because they can play man coverage and send the extra guy.
Yeah. Well,
with those cornerbacks and Earl Thomas.
All I know is this. Jimmy Garoppolo threw a total of 5 incompletions against Baltimore. If that's on a nicer field, there is no way the Ravens offensively do more than what they did because that game was set up for the Ravens to win the game. It was.
So you're telling me on a nicer day, on a fast track or a regular track, that Lamar Jackson wasn't going to get going?
No, he wouldn't.
Because that field hindered Jackson just as much as it hindered everybody else.
Wait a second. There was a fast track in Buffalo yesterday, and he ran for 40 yards. So don't give me that. The difference is this. The San Francisco 49ers are very fast defensively. Lamar Jackson has an issue when he plays a team that can run sideline to sideline because he's not a great drop-back quarterback. Against the 49ers, he threw for 105 yards. He ran for 101. You play the 49ers on a nice field in the Super Bowl, and the Niners will bludgeon their ass. Because the Niners run the ball better also than they do. Because you have 3 running backs that can get after it. And the Mostert guy, 150 yards, 8 yards per carry. They didn't have Matt Breida. I mean, they're missing running backs. Tevin Coleman only carried the ball 5 times in that game. And wide receiver-wise, the 49ers are better and deeper. They've got George Kittle. George Kittle is the biggest threat on a football field catching a ball right now.
Well, I'll definitely give you that. As far as pass catchers, it's not even close. I don't think the Ravens have anything at wide receiver. Willie Snead's their top guy. They have pretty good tight ends, but, the 49ers have Kittle. He's the best in the league. I think Deebo Samuel, him and Emmanuel Sanders are legitimate threats on the outside. I just think these are two different. I would love to see a Super Bowl between these two, a rematch.
I think it would be a blowout. I think the 49ers would handle them. I really do. I think in a big situation, you're going to see what Lamar Jackson is, which is a limited quarterback. I mean, he's going to take off running, and the problem is with quarterbacks like that.
Would you take that limited quarterback in Cincinnati right now?
No freaking way. I would take Andy Dalton over Lamar. Lamar Jackson doesn't fit the personnel in Cincinnati. Hell, nobody fits the personnel in Cincinnati right now. But you can't come out. You'd have him and Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd. I mean, Lamar Jackson, if he would have come to Cincinnati last year, would be considered a bust right now. And I will say it again, Lamar Jackson in 90% of all offenses would be considered a bust right now. John Harbaugh had the foresight to put in what fits Lamar Jackson's strengths. That's all I'm saying. Lamar Jackson is a special athlete, but he's not a special quarterback yet. He's a special athlete.
Yeah, and he's hot right now.
I guess. I mean,
all it takes is one hot year.
Yeah.
If they get the Super Bowl, win it.
They're
you
not
can't take
getting
it away.
to the Super Bowl.
Even if he falters in the rest of his career, if the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson win a Super Bowl this year, you can't take it away.
So Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl ring. So does Brad Johnson. Can't take it away, but they still weren't very good. And I can tell you this. There is no way in hell the Baltimore Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl this year. No way. They got a shot to get there, but they're not winning the Super Bowl.
Do you think it comes out of the NFC, or do you think another AFC team can challenge
I think it either comes out of the NFC or it comes out of New England or Kansas City. I'm not one to write off the New England Patriots from what I saw yesterday. I know others are, but the New England Patriots are playing terrible right now.
And anybody trying to write off the New England Patriots in the past, they just want to be the first guy on national media to say it. You can't write that team off.
Well, this is the thing, and we'll go ahead and talk about it now, but I thought that they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought the officials took the game from them. I thought the officiating in that game was absolutely atrocious, and I think the officiating in that game was absolutely atrocious because it really behooves the NFL to have the Kansas City Chiefs beat the New England Patriots right now.
So I hate blame. I hate that conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy.
Right.
Wait a second, though. This is not a conspiracy theory because it's true. This is when we watch these games. We never see the Cincinnati Bengals or the Arizona Cardinals get calls like this. We just don't. When this happens, it happens to New England or it happens for Green Bay. There's a reason why things happen. Now with the Chiefs, you got Patrick Mahomes with an injured hand now. So he goes down, and then you got a Patriots-Ravens championship game, and the Patriots better dominate that game if they want to win it. That's all I'll say. Because
is there a severity to that hand injury? Do we know anything yet?
I can tell you this. Andy Dalton, back in 2015, when the Bengals were at the time like 10-2, he hurt his finger. And everybody thought, well, this can't be a big deal. It's just his finger. Next thing you know, he doesn't play the rest of the year because what people forget is this. If it's your throwing hand, even a finger injury can be serious. It can be deadly. You look at Matt Stafford. Was that 2 or 3 years ago when the Lions were sitting as like the 1 or 2 seed? He was having an MVP season, and he messed up his finger. He played the rest of the year, but he never threw the ball right again, and they lost in the wild card playoff game. So I think when you put all these injuries together, you're not going to get a healthy Patrick Mahomes the rest of the year. And since you're not going to get that, the Chiefs have to be able to play defense to win. And the Chiefs are not good enough to play defense to win, and they can't stop the run. So I still think this comes down to the Patriots, the Ravens, and possibly the Titans.
As bad as the Kansas City defense is at stopping the run, I mean, I know they looked good against New England yesterday because New England can't run the ball this season, but their secondary is actually flying under the radar. They actually have a pretty good secondary.
Okay. All I know is
That's
this
it.
though: if you can't
Which is
stop the run, your
anything's an
secondary won't
improvement in
matter
last
that
year.
much. If you know what I mean. And this is the thing: they didn't run the ball on New England, and it seemed to me the entire second half that New England had kind of figured Kansas City out. Now, the concerning thing is New England, the scorer, has to run a lot of trick plays anymore. But if anybody can figure out how to get this done, it's Bill Belichick. So I'm not writing him off yet because every
You
year
know,
for the last 5 years I've seen people write him off, and then his ass is still playing for the Super Bowl.
I think with Sony Michel, they pulled the plug on him. James White got a lot of the carries. We've been seeing this a lot this season. They drafted Damian Harris, and I know he's a little bit banged up. We haven't seen a lot of Damian Harris outside of the preseason where he looked good. I think they used that high draft capital because they were worried about Sony Michel. Maybe, and I said this to you last week or the week before. At some point, you got to deactivate Sony Michel and get this Damian Harris in there and see if he's going to provide any type of spark because they need something.
And the thing about Damian Harris is, at least at Alabama, he was an explosive runner. And that's what they need. You put an explosive runner here. And the other thing is, I don't know why New England, and they did it yesterday in the second half. Sometimes I think it's a good thing to have Julian Edelman as the guy who's the wide guy instead of the guy in the slot. And I think when they started moving him around yesterday in the game, you saw people get more open. And really, I don't think this is an issue where Tom Brady looks old because he doesn't to me. It just looks like he's got receivers that can't get open, and when they do, they drop the ball.
I agree. I'm not saying that Brady isn't regressing a little bit. I just don't know because people are making that comparison to the cliff that Peyton Manning fell off after having that one of those historic seasons, and then the year where they actually won the Super Bowl and Peyton did not look good, but the defense won it. I don't think we're seeing that out of Brady because Peyton Manning still had young Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and really good running backs and that tight end, Julius Thomas. Tom Brady has Julian Edelman and a bunch of guys.
Yeah, and a bunch of guys that haven't been that good. All right, let's transition.
At what point do we blame Bill Belichick for the personnel on offense?
Well,
I want your take because
the personnel's
I'm
always the guy in charge of the personnel. And I think what bit him in the ass here was, Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown are not guys you can depend on. And they depended on Josh Gordon. They were trying to get lucky with Antonio Brown, and neither one worked out. I would say the personnel thing all falls on Bill Belichick. But I could also say this, with it being Bill Belichick, I am willing to wait and see how it plays out.
For as important as that tight end position has been to the Patriots, to go from Gronk to Ryan Izzo, Matt Lacoste, a 90-year-old Ben Watson, I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is this, it's hard to find a Gronk.
You don't need a Gronk, you need, look at all these. You could have called Baltimore up and tried to get Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, but why would Baltimore give up Hayden Hurst when Hayden Hurst fits their offense?
I'm just saying there are plenty of teams out there that have number 2 tight ends better than what Patriots have right now.
Oh, there's teams with number 3 tight ends better than what the Patriots have right now. So yeah, that's on Belichick. All I'm saying is, if anybody will figure it out, it'll be Belichick. So it's not like he's a guy that I don't trust. So, and if he's wrong, he just missed on it. And I would guess that if he's back next year with Brady, they'll find themselves a tight end and some wide receivers, and they'll be better than what they were this year, because that's what they do. All right, let's quit talking about teams that are games that are meaningless and teams that don't mean anything, because the Battle of Ohio ensued yesterday between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield was a stellar 11 for 24, 192 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And they won, which will tell you how bad my Cincinnati Bengals are. Baker Mayfield's terrible. Nick Chubb saved their ass by rushing 7 yards per carry. And then, of course, the Bengals saved their ass by being the Bengals. But
Um, I think the biggest news coming out of this game is the news that happened before the game was Odell Beckham is going to need off-season hernia surgery. He's been battling it all season long, which could be a reason why he's been non-existent in that offense. But this game was just a game.
It wasn't even a game because I'm a Bengals fan. I watched most of the first half, and then I realized, hey, the 49ers are playing the Saints. Maybe I should watch a couple teams coached by adults play real football. So then I watched that. If I wanted to watch a game coached by adults in real football, I wouldn't have switched to the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, as the Falcons beat the Panthers 40-20. And if they had given up on Ron Rivera in Carolina, they've pretty much given up on everything right now because they looked even worse yesterday than what they have been looking. Kyle Allen, 28 for 41, 293, a touchdown, 2 picks. Christian McCaffrey ran for 53 yards, 82 yards receiving. And I would say with the offense this team has, if you hold Christian McCaffrey under 200 yards, you're probably going to beat him.
Yeah, McCaffrey has actually been held scoreless in 3 out of the past 4 weeks. He doesn't look the same, but I'm not questioning Christian McCaffrey. I just think the Carolina Panthers, which is the reason why they fired Ron Rivera. I don't know if it's a lack of talent. I don't know if they've given up on Ron, but this team is just for as talented as they can be and as good as they can be, they're just, to me, it's coaching. It's like Dallas.
No, because I don't think Carolina has near the talent.
I mean, they have some pieces. They're not as close. They're not close to
but
Dallas
this is the
on
thing.
talent.
Every team has pieces. The Bengals have pieces, but the Bengals pieces are in 2 defensive linemen, a quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers, but one of them's hurt. The pieces usually, and I think with Carolina, outside of Luke Kuechly, this is true. There's not a lot of pieces on defense. I don't think Carolina's defense is that good. I don't think they're what they're cracked up to be. I think Luke Kuechly is, and their offensive line is bad. And if you have pieces, and none of those pieces are offensive linemen, you're usually in for a long season anyway.
A little bit of news just came through that Perry Fuel, the interim head coach, is going to stick with Kyle Allen for what it's worth. What else are you going to go to?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Might as well let Christian McCaffrey run the option. The Jets beat the Dolphins 22-21. Got any comment on that, Anthony? Because I really don't want to talk about it.
They set some kind of a field goal record or tied a record. I don't know.
Well, that's good for them. All right, the Chargers beat the Jaguars 45-10, and it looks like the Jaguars are giving up. Who do you think the Jaguars' next coach will be?
Who's close to Tom Coughlin?
Eli Manning could be the next head coach. What do you think?
You really think Marone's gone?
He has to be. He never should have been hired. He's a joke. This is the same guy that in Buffalo went 9-7. And then decided that he wanted a different job and bailed on his team. And look how that's worked out for him. I think they have drafted high for a while. They have talent there, and a lot of that talent has wanted to get the hell out. And I would say if he was the guy that made the decision that he wanted to spend whatever ungodly amount of money it was to bring in Nick Foles, then it's probably time for him to go.
Then you got to put Tom Coughlin in that mix because, Tom Coughlin makes that call for Nick Foles.
Well, I think this. Anytime you're firing a head coach, if the, GM made the decision to get the head coach, why wouldn't you get rid of both of them?
Yeah, GM, quarterback, coach, they really all do go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, but the GM and head coach do go hand in hand, which is why when you fire one, you probably ought to just fire them both. Unless that GM's been there for a while and has hired somebody that was good before, maybe you can overlook a mistake. But Doug Marrone is a guy who I said when they hired him, it was a stupid hire. He's not a good football coach, and he's generally, from the guys I've talked to that have played for him, he's an asshole. Who wants to play for an asshole, especially when you don't win?
Tom Coughlin, I don't know if it's fair to tarnish his legacy. So I feel like maybe some guys just aren't cut out to be a general manager.
How about this? You're not tarnishing his legacy. He was a great head football coach. He's just a really bad GM.
Yes, and that's what I don't think one should affect the other.
No, Tom Flores was a great head football coach. When he became the GM in Seattle after being the head coach at Seattle, he was a terrible GM.
Hey, maybe Jason Garrett should be a general manager because he sucks as a head coach.
Well, maybe Jason Garrett just needs to go do something else. Everything, put it like this, you don't have to say, anytime either one of us talk about Jason Garrett, at the end of it, we don't have to say that was a joke because everybody knows it is, unless we say he's a good football coach.
Hey, I hear I have a source that's saying that Jason Garrett might be the next head coach of the Bengals.
I don't care. That's fine with me. What the hell? I've got Opie Taylor right now. I might as well take his older brother. And see, nobody knows that Opie had a older brother, but it's Jason Garrett. He was the bastard son of Aunt Bee and Andy, and I believe that they sent him away so people wouldn't find out about it because Andy had gotten a little sauced one night, and him and Aunt Bee hooked up. You didn't know about that?
No.
Yeah, true story. I think actually there's tape of it somewhere because I think Barney Fife was filming it and they didn't know about it. But all right, next up, the Tennessee Titans beat the Oakland Raiders 42-21. What a hell of a transition that was. Close game for a half. Tennessee wore them out in the second half. Derrick Henry again, 103 yards rushing. But Ryan Tannehill, 21 for 27, 391, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, this Titans team, I think it's going to win the AFC South. I think there's a decent shot that they can sweep the Texans over the next 3 weeks in their 2 games.
Listen, the Titans right now, they went into Oakland, and Oakland's a lot better team at home, and they did the job. Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, you name it, that offense went off, and that defense is starting to come together. I really do think the Tennessee Titans are not only going to win that division, but I think they can make a deep run.
I think they can, too. I think they can beat anybody in the AFC right now. I mean, they match up with those teams because when we look at it, the Patriots, the Bills, I think the Ravens, all 3 teams have issues with stopping the run. And Tennessee could run the ball, plus they can throw the ball. And when you can do everything, you're a huge threat. And defensively, they're a physical team that gets after it. A.J. Brown has been a lot better with Tannehill there. I still don't like the depth with Tennessee's receiving core, but with Derrick Henry, Dion Lewis in the backfield, A.J. Brown, there's enough weapons here. This team could make some noise come playoff time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm worried about their receivers and their pass catchers because outside of A.J. Brown, who's a rookie, they really don't have much, but it seems like Ryan Tannehill is making do.
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder what happens if Ryan Tannehill gets another weapon or 2 for next year. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers continue a playoff charge at 8-5. Devlin Duck Hodges, 16 for 19, 152 yards, 1 touchdown. They didn't really run the ball great, but with the Duck in the defense, Pittsburgh beats the Cardinals 23-17. I still don't think this Pittsburgh team's any good, but I do still think Mike Tomlin, at 8 wins, getting this team to 500 should make him the coach of the year no matter what. And they've got a shot to make the playoffs here, Anthony.
I mean, they could possibly. I mean, I think they have the Bills coming up, but they have a pretty favorable schedule down the stretch where 9 wins, even possibly 10 wins, isn't impossible, or no?
I don't think 10 gets them in, or 9 gets them in. I think 10 could. They play Buffalo, they play the Jets. The thing about them, and what we saw yesterday, is they're not going to blow anybody out. So these last 3 games are probably all going to be really close. And it's going to come down to whether Devlin Duck Hodges can make the plays at the end of the game. They play the Bills next up on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock at home in Pittsburgh. The Bills are a better football team. The thing is, they are very similar football teams in the style they play. My concern here is the Pittsburgh Steelers won't be able to run the ball enough against Buffalo where Duck Hodges can be successful. I really think Buffalo probably beats them there. But then they beat the Jets. All of a sudden, you're sitting at 9-6. You're playing the Ravens at Baltimore. The question at that point is, do the Ravens have to win that game to be the number one seed? And if they don't, how much do they play their starters? Maybe it gives Pittsburgh a chance. But I would say overall, when I look at this, I don't think they make the playoffs. I think if they beat Buffalo, though, then there's a definite possibility that they could. I think this Bills game coming up for them is like a playoff game, and it's a game that they have to win.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not going to count them out just because they're all sorts of banged up on offense. That defense is good enough to shut anybody down, and all it takes is a couple of turnovers from Josh Allen.
Yeah, and Josh Allen could do that. He hasn't done it as of late, but he could. Let's go ahead and look at last night, where the Los Angeles Rams, I think, put themselves back into playoff contention with a 28-12 dominating win over the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, 22 for 36, 245, one interception. Those are average numbers for an average quarterback, but they're not the numbers that Russell Wilson has to put up for this team to be able to win. And I think the key here, Anthony, was the Rams were able to run the ball successfully enough with Gurley. And Goff made a couple mistakes, but the thing was, they jumped up 21-3, and when you do that, you make the Seattle Seahawks play in a way they don't want to play, which is basically they've got to open it up and throw the ball instead of just handing the ball to Chris Carson, run him play action and bootleg off of that. And I think the Rams took away in the first half what Seattle wanted to do, and then Seattle's not really good at playing catch-up once they get down like that on the road because the key to Seattle is being able to pound the rock and then work off the play action and the bootlegs with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I actually liked the Rams in this game. I picked the Rams to win the game, and I think the Rams are better than what we have seen, especially now. I mean, I said it a couple of weeks ago after that Chicago win. However they shuffled that offensive line, it looked like it worked. The Baltimore game, I mean, they looked terrible there, but a lot of teams look bad against Baltimore. But this defense has been what's carrying the Rams to win more games. Ever since they got Jalen Ramsey, they played better defense. And Jared Goff, he did make some mistakes, but he also made some really good throws. But, Gurley, over 100 scrimmage yards. He played well last week. I think it's too little too late for the Rams, but I'm not going to count them out because, they're going to go and beat my Cowboys this week.
I'm hoping.
Me too. I'm sick of them. But then again, the Eagles will probably lose tonight and give me more false hope.
All right, so you think the Eagles will lose tonight?
Knowing my luck, yes.
Well, I hope the Eagles win because you mocked me when I said the Eagles were going to win the division. And you remember the show like 5 or 6 weeks ago when you were flying high and I said the Cowboys wouldn't even make the playoffs and you mocked me?
Yes, I do.
All right, I just figured I'd bring that up.
I remember that.
Yep. So I think the Cowboys this season is just as over as Adam Vinatieri's.
I agree.
I think you're much better off that way.
I'm not going to disagree with any of that because even if the Cowboys made the playoffs, what are they going to do with it?
No, they're going to get the hell beat out of them. They still may bring back Garrett if they got into the playoffs. But the scary thing is there's enough talent there that maybe they pull an upset in the first round and then Jerry keeps him anyways, and then you're really screwed.
Yep.
Because the problem right now is a wild card team. The 3 teams you would have to beat would maybe be something like the Vikings, the 49ers, and who am I missing here? The Saints. So if you got to run that gauntlet, nobody's going to run that gauntlet. So you're better off to just not make the playoffs and let Jerry fire
Jason.
Yeah. Opie Taylor's older brother. All right. I like the Eagles tonight. I think the Eagles are going to get it done. I think you're going to see them start to play better. Is Jordan Howard playing or not?
No. He is still not cleared for contact, which is concerning because it's been the same narrative for about a month.
Yeah. So they need to get Jordan Howard back. I think they'll be good enough to win the game tonight, though. So I would say Eagles something like 27-17.
I'm actually going to go on the Giants end. Not that Eli. I think Eli is going to somehow spark this team and get a win.
Yeah.
I at least hope they play better for Eli's sake because he doesn't deserve to go out there and get his ass kicked.
I agree, and I almost want them to win this game too. I don't really care either way, but I do like Eli. They got Saquon Barkley. Maybe he can do something. But I mean, the Eagles right now, if they lose this game, they're 5-8 and only a game back, and still get to play the Cowboys at home.
Yep,
that's messed up.
It's a mess. That whole NFC East a mess.
Yeah, I thought that division would be bad, but I thought it would be bad with two slightly above average teams in it.
Yeah.
Instead, it's ended up being bad with two bad teams and two below
really
average
bad teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's nothing even resembling average here. And I don't think that there's enough heart there to get a playoff win by the Cowboys if they get in. And I think the Eagles are so decimated by injuries, they probably don't have a chance to do anything. They don't have a chance to do anything if they get in. So this is going to end badly for either one of those teams that gets in there anyways. Anything else you want to discuss before we wrap it up, Anthony?
No, I think we got everything covered.
All right, and I want to remind everybody, at 3 o'clock today live, we will have the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show with myself and Ken Sterling to talk about Indiana's thrilling 87-67 ass-kicking at the hands of the Wisconsin Badgers on Saturday. That'll be a lot of fun to talk about. And then at 4 o'clock today Eastern Time, myself and former HBO boxing historian Chris Shelton will be on, and we will discuss the career of former light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Michael Spinks. So make sure you check that out. You can find Anthony in the FF Face-Off of Mike Hoff. Where at?
On Twitter at The Real NFL Guru and at the FF Face-Off.
All right. You can find it on The Grueling Truth every day or whenever it comes out also, or whatever me and Jeremiah post the damn thing, because Anthony still won't send me a text when it's posted. You just tag me in it. You know how many people tag me and stuff?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. But it's usually people, hey, listen to my show. I want to be on. And then they're never any good. So I just go with the FF Face-Off because it's the best fantasy podcast that I've heard. All right, guys. You can hear all of our shows on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn. Basically, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.